Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. I hope you're all doing well today. I've got a message for you, and the message is you are being rewarded for being a good listener. So let's pull some cards and we'll figure out what it means to be a good listener and what these rewards are that are in store for you. Alright, our first card, we have the King of Cups. Okay, so I feel like you have this level of emotional mastery when it comes to listening to people in conversation. So as you can see, the King of Cups has this massive empty cup right there. And I get the sense that when you come to a conversation, it's almost like you empty yourself of your biases and need to express your opinion all the time, and you are willing to just listen to someone and let them pour out their feelings. And this acts as a way to open up people in a new way that they might not in other contexts. So I feel like you are a really good listener when it comes to conversation and interactions with other people. All right, and then we have the Six of Wands here. And I feel like this is relating to, like I mentioned in yesterday's reading when this card came out, this feeling of leadership, almost where you're a good role model when it comes to your ability to listen to a group and figure out what best suits the needs of a group. And this could be like a small social group, like maybe a group of friends trying to be pragmatic or be a mediator of like, what is the group doing tonight, and trying to best assess what will satisfy everyone. Or it could relate more to like a larger group, like when we talk about leadership of like, you could be leading a company, like you could have this boss energy, or maybe you're the leader of a country or something like that, where it's like you can kind of best assess like what everyone needs, because you're willing to listen to just what people are giving you, and not necessarily always in conversation. Like I feel like this relates more to almost the sort of listening that is expressed through observation. So I feel like you're both a good listener and a good observer, and maybe in the sense these qualities are almost the same. All right, then we have the Queen of Swords here. So I feel like you're someone who can make a judgment in this very gentle way almost, where it's almost like not a brutality, but like a clean cutting almost. So I feel like in a way you're able to separate out different things very well. Like maybe if you listen to a song, you can almost isolate all the different instruments, and really be able to pull things apart from the whole. And in the sense, it's almost like a very delicate and pointed observation and listening ability that you have. All right, let's pull some more cards. Okay, we have the Five of Pentacles here. And I feel like this is, again, like you're listening to people who might not always be listened to. Like I feel like if you're stopped by someone on the street, or maybe someone in a kind of awkward encounter, maybe some people might think of it as, where they might almost like shut down and try to run away, I feel like you're more the type to just be willing to hear everyone's story and listen to the people who maybe don't get listened to. Or like even if this person might be able to talk to other people, these people don't really take them seriously. Like with the example of like, you know, the poor and the injured out on the street, right? A lot of times people are very dismissive to homeless people and like just think of them as crazy, or just like they have nothing to offer me. But I get the sense you're the type of person who can recognize the humanity in anyone, so that if someone who was like homeless or maybe had this look about them that other people might avoid, you're more willing to hear them out and like listen to their life story and maybe glean something from that, and also like provide something in exchange. It's almost like this dual exchange of energy when you listen to someone, because through your observation you're gaining new wisdom and new insights about the world, and you're experiencing things from a different person's perspective. So it's like putting yourself in someone else's shoes, and at the same time you're offering them a place to express themselves and feel seen in a way. So I feel like, yeah, you make people feel heard is really the outcome of your listening ability. And I feel like you're also able to listen to messages that don't necessarily come from individuals almost. Like you almost have this inner ear where you can kind of hear and sense things going on in the world from this sort of impersonal force, I guess. All right, so we have the Nine of Cups here. So yeah, it's almost like you're surrounded in a way by all these things coming in towards you, and it requires this discernment of the Queen of Swords to be like, what do I actually want to listen to? So I feel like in a way it's almost like you don't get overwhelmed by the amount of things that you have to listen to. It's almost like this abundance gives you a sense of choice and a sense of power in a way. So instead of just shutting down, like I mentioned, where some people might just be like, I can't participate in this conversation, or I can't, like, I don't know how to be in this situation that requires attentive listening. I feel like you almost can thrive in that because you're able to sort of filter out the noise and kind of hone in on like what is the cup here, like what is the root of like what we're trying to get to. So in the sense, even a high volume of things doesn't overwhelm you, and that's why I think you're able to pick up well on the messages that the world is sending you. It's because instead of being overwhelmed by this volume of information that's out there, I feel like you have a really good sense of like, what is it specifically that I need to hear right now? All right, we have the Ace of Wands. So I feel like in a way it's almost like this powerful force that you have, where like I think we tend to think of listening as a really receptive energy, which is true because you are like receiving an external energy and responding to it in some way. But I think at the same time there's a way of looking at listening as this like, it is like also an active force coming from you almost. Like it does require a lot of energy and focus to listen, almost more energy and discernment and diplomacy than it would require to speak in many cases. So I feel like in the sense it's almost, yeah, like your power, like maybe you almost have a superpower for listening, where it's like genuinely some people might struggle with listening, and it's almost like seen as this negative quality. Like maybe there were times in your life where people criticized you for not speaking up, like you were maybe kind of by the sidelines, just kind of observing a group or listening to other people talk. Maybe in conversation you tend to prefer to let the other person talk and just let them reveal things about themselves and go off on their long tangents because you enjoy listening so much. And it's like this act of listening that is really, it is a superpower. And I feel like it has provided you a real source of strength in your life, of also like getting some sort of enjoyment out of it. Like I mentioned with this example of like listening to music and being able to pick out really specific things in it, I feel like this is where the sense of pleasure comes from, is like you can identify almost these pearls within anything. So even in a conversation that seems like dull or going in circles or just like not really beneficial, like sometimes you talk to people and you can tell they're just like wallowing in their ego, and it's like that can't be healthy for you. But I feel like you have this ability to pick out the pearls from that and not necessarily dismiss the whole thing as like, okay, I just can't talk to this person at all. I feel like maybe you have this ability to hone in on, yeah, like what is the pearl of this conversation, of like what is this person trying to express on a deeper level that maybe they're not even consciously aware of, and then you're able to listen to that almost, where people might be expressing something about a repressed desire or some sort of frustration, and typically something to do with themselves, like maybe some sort of insecurity, and almost you can go in and like heal that wound because you can identify it in a way that maybe other people aren't aware of. All right, and then you have the Knight of Pentacles here. So I feel like you are kind of like a steady kind of force, and I think it's this internal source of strength and stability that allows you to be a good listener. Is you're kind of working from this one basis point and things kind of reverberate off of you. So it's like instead of being mixed in with the noise and not being able to find yourself within it so that you can discern other sounds coming from outside of you, it's almost like you're so secure in yourself that you're like this solid pole, I guess, and it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to just pick out the things in your environment and like be able to find some sort of sense of pleasure in it, where like if you didn't have the sense of stability it would just feel like noise, but because you're so stable it's almost like you're watching the world spin around you in a sense, and it helps you, yeah, maintain a center of gravity basically. All right, we have the Strength card. Yeah, so like I was saying, like I think that this listening ability really is your strength. And it is this feeling of like taming a beast almost, where it could feel out of control at times, right? Like I mentioned, where things could be like overwhelming or a conversation could be really difficult. But I feel like your ability to listen gives you the strength in these situations to tame a beast. So like to tame this feeling of being overwhelmed and then turn it into a feeling of comfort and pleasure, or to turn a difficult conversation into something that could be healing for both parties. And I feel like it's also like an inner source of strength for you as well, where like maybe there are thoughts or feelings inside of yourself that you either previously didn't listen to, or maybe you've been told not to listen to, or that you notice other people don't really listen to, or they don't talk about it, where it's like these kind of scary, beastly things that are inside of us. But I feel like you listen to those parts of yourself without judgment. You kind of let them arise, say their piece, and then you kind of tame it. And this tames the beast in a way, where instead of being this terrifying lion that's so scary it could kill you, but because of your ability to just listen to it, be gentle with it, and sit with it, then it turns into this feeling of it's almost like now the lion is on your side. And it also brings a new gentleness to those sides of you, where before it might have felt like something kind of existentially terrifying, but now you're starting to understand that those parts of yourself are your strength also, in a way of being able to turn them into something that works for you rather than against you. All right, let's pull a few cards on what the rewards may be from this listening power. All right, we have the Chariot. Okay, so I feel like it's this feeling of almost charging ahead, where because you've accumulated so much through your time in being a great listener, you have all the things that you need to just charge ahead and tread the path that is right for you. Where if you didn't previously execute these observational skills, you might not have picked up so much in the world. And you wouldn't have really been able to consolidate these things into something that could guide you. But because you've been listening to all these different impulses and signals, it's like they are your power and strength, and like the thing that's driving you forward, like driving a carriage. Where like maybe if you hadn't been listening too well, it would be like pulling a cart by hand. But it's almost like this listening and observation gives you the horses that will pull your chariot. Okay, the Ace of Cups. So it's this feeling of like an emotional overflow, where I feel like the well is going to burst forth within you, of where previously maybe you also stifled your emotions in some way. It's because maybe you noticed that other people didn't listen to you, and it's like there were so many emotions that you had to hide and push down, and things that you couldn't talk about, and in the sense like the well had run dry in some ways. But I feel like because you've been exercising your ability to be such a good listener for other people and just in general, you've also improved your ability to listen to yourself. And in the sense, you don't necessarily need to voice every single emotion or concern to other people. It's almost like because you can see these in yourself and recognize them and accept them and make yourself feel heard, it gives you this new emotional power of being able to harness all of this feeling into something that feels like a well that you can drink from. So it is really this kind of a fountain within you, is your ability to recognize everything in yourself and not necessarily endorse things, but just kind of accept them as they are. And through this process of listening and accepting and understanding, it brings forth a new well of power for you, something that you can draw on eternally, because it's always with you. These emotions are always springing up. And every single time that you choose to listen to something within yourself, it brings you new power. It's like drinking a refreshing drink when you're in the middle of a desert. So in the sense, anywhere you are, even if there's no people around, or maybe you're in a situation where there's a lot of people but you feel like you can't talk to them, it's almost like you'll just be able to listen to yourself. All right, and then we have the Four of Wands here. And this is this feeling of like a celebration. So I feel like part of the reward of your listening ability is that you're able to get along well with other people. And this is really what I feel like is in this card, is like a celebration with a group, and specifically two people coming together. And it almost looks like a party or kind of like a wedding feeling. And I feel like the benefit of your listening ability is that it allows you to form these stronger bonds with people, and an ability to celebrate things, where I feel like when you're not a good listener, it only breeds more cynicism and resentment and criticism, where like if someone says something to you and then you immediately respond with just your opinions on the situation, or you're immediately trying to come up with solutions that maybe this person didn't even ask for, that actually tends to alienate people and gets them away from this energy of like celebration and joy, because it makes people focus more on these like this conflict, and this resentment for things outside of yourself. But I feel like when you bring this like really gentle listening acceptance, it puts people more in a state of feeling that there is something to celebrate in the world, and the sort of feeling of just like the celebration of the fact that you're able to listen to things. Like when the well bursts forth, it's almost like that is a celebration in itself of like, if you weren't listening, it's almost as if these things didn't exist, right? Like that common phrase of, if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it really make a noise? And it's that feeling of like, if something goes unwitnessed in this world, like, is it actually real, or does it only become real once you've witnessed it? So in that sense, anytime that you witness something within yourself or within another person, you are validating it in a sense of not necessarily endorsing it, like I said, but just making it real, of making it be seen. And in the sense, that is a great power. Let's draw a few more cards on maybe how you could hone this listening ability even more. All right, we have the Two of Pentacles. So this is this feeling of having some sort of duality, but also a balance. And there is this like infinity sign on this card, which also appears in the Strength card. So I feel like there is this feeling of understanding that there's an infinite amount of things for you to listen to, where maybe if you had previously not honed this ability so much, you would have really been focused on these like literal examples that I gave you of listening to music or having a conversation with someone as opportunities for you to listen. But I feel like you're starting to understand that there is an infinite amount of opportunities for you to listen. In every single moment, there is something for you to listen to, whether it is something internal in your psyche or something in the world. And there's this feeling of that contrast is what makes you able to listen to something. Like in any situation, you can kind of pit your psyche against the world, and then from this springs kind of like a new synthesis. And through this, it gives you a new sense of power. So I feel like what this card is instructing you to do is really hone this ability to see the duality in everything in some ways, of understanding that things can't exist without their opposite. So that when you look at something like a plant that's growing and it's alive, you're witnessing the plant, and maybe you could listen to plants in some ways. Like being in nature is so lovely, like when you just commune with the trees. But when you witness a plant that is flourishing, you can also see in it the other side, which is the side of the death, that the plant will one day wither. And in that sense, that's sort of a conversation that you're having with the concept of life and death. So it is this feeling of something that is ever present with you, and it's always like a choice you can make whether to listen or not. Almost like you can kind of turn it on and off like a light switch. Not necessarily so much like there's an impulse that's coming at you and then you have to respond to it of like, okay, I'm going to listen now. But it's almost like you turn on your ability to listen and then you're in that state. And then when you turn it off, you're not in that state. So maybe there could be days where you go without like actually listening to anything. And then there could be days where you really are like locked in and it feels like everything is speaking to you. Let's throw another card on this topic. Okay, we have the Five of Wands here. And this is this feeling of conflict where I feel like this messiness almost. So I feel like what this card is trying to tell you is to, like I mentioned, is reduce this urge to be in conflict with other people. And of course, it can be fun to have some sort of rhetorical debate at times, or even like an argument can be, a playful argument can be fun for sure. But I think what this is telling you is to to listen better, you need to reduce that urge in yourself to constantly be disagreeing or putting in your own opinion, because that only serves to create more conflict. Whereas I feel like when you're trying to achieve this state of harmony through listening, it's this feeling of accepting things as they are. So I feel like if you're someone who maybe tends to always kind of be on the attack in conversation, is to maybe try and take a backseat from that for a little while and kind of see what emerges when you aren't necessarily always trying to create conflict and instead trying to create peace and harmony. I feel like this sounds like a little bit love and lighty, but genuinely this is how it works. Is like when you are in conflict, it's like you have turned this listening switch off, and when you're in unity with things, it's like the switch is on. So it's working to get to more of that state. All right, and then we have the Four of Swords here. And this is such an evocative card. It's like this grave, but it looks like it's been opened. And it always makes me think of like a saint's body being on display. We have this picture in the stained glass of some sort of benevolent looking woman maybe offering something to a man who's kneeling. So I feel like in a way, this listening gift, like I said, is like kind of the greatest power that you have. And in a sense, it is the greatest power that you have in your life. And maybe what you'll be remembered for is that you were like a very supportive person and you offered this gift freely to the world, where it almost, because like I mentioned, it's beneficial for you to be a good listener too, so it's really at no sacrifice for you, but it is this act to be more benevolent, of like you make this choice in every moment. And this is something that will be rewarded after death. Also, there's this feeling of like taking up your own sword as well. Is like if you choose to be really passive in this life, and when I say passive, like that's why we can kind of associate it with this feeling of like listening is a passive act, where like if people had criticized you in the past, that's maybe what they thought. But I think because you're someone who understands that listening is actually active, that it is your ability to take up your sword every time that you choose to listen. All right, let's draw a few cards on, again, like what it means to be a good listener, but not so much in this worldly sense of like just in conversation, but just in communion with yourself, maybe. Okay, the Hermit. Oh, this is perfect. Okay. This card is really speaking to this feeling of solitude, but also this inner guiding light in a way. So it feels like when you're guided by this internal source of strength, it really empowers you. And I feel like you're someone who is able to tap into this very well. Like I mentioned, like when you start honing your listening ability, in every moment, it allows you to listen to things that were inside yourself this whole time, but that you couldn't hear because they were more of a subtle variety. So the more that you build this muscle, the more able you are to pick up on these subtle perceptions. And so I feel like what this card is instructing you to do is like genuinely spend more time in quiet contemplation with yourself, because if you really want to hone into these really subtle frequencies, it's something that needs to be done in this really peaceful state, in this peaceful setting as well, like somewhere where it is quiet and you have some sense of solitude, because it's something, like I mentioned, is like listening is genuinely a lot harder than people give it credit for, and it is a muscle that needs to be strengthened. And I think if you're really devoted to making this ability count, you have to really put in the hours of like building it up. And so I know that people are often resistant to meditation, and maybe this resistance is a sign that points you towards something you should do. Like if your ego resists it and wants to avoid it at all costs and thinks, oh, this is so unnecessary, then maybe it's something you should give a try, because it's something that is very beneficial, especially when it comes to this topic at hand. All right, let's draw one card to close out this reading. The Eight of Cups. And this is this feeling of leaving something behind, and almost like things that you've accumulated, you're now leaving behind. So I feel like maybe part of this new listening ability is leaving behind some of the things that you had mistakenly listened to, right? Where your new listening ability has this critical sense to it, this very discerning, sharp edge to it, whereas previously, before this was honed, you kind of absorbed everything without necessarily putting in the effort to listen in this very discerning sense. So I feel like there may be things that you have internalized when you were previously not as good a listener that maybe you're needing to leave behind in order to become a new listener and take this ability to the next level. So I feel like what this relates to is maybe things that you have as like a core belief about yourself, something that you internalized very young. And like I mentioned, it could be these hangups related to how much you need to participate in a social situation, maybe being criticized for your introversion, or maybe just this feeling of conflict, where like maybe you picked that up very young, is that like conversation is adversarial, or your relationships to other people are always adversarial. And I think that this is something that's very important to leave behind if you want to step onto new shores and take your abilities to the next level. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this reading. It was a lot of fun to do, as always. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.